it. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to point at. And I like how you said we see luxury and necessities differently. Like, I think it just depends on which lens you put at it. But the fundamental thing, I think, is not spending money you don't have, right? In that sense. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay, next one. It's funny because the next one I jumped I jumped, what was it? Coupling. But we're going to go to cradling because that's where I really wanted to get Dr. Shoyinkas' perspectives, right, on this. And like I said, when the time comes for coupling, we're going to bring everybody back and we will do a round table or more. Oh, wow. But I didn't want us to miss this, right? The question of cradling. Okay, so psychiatrist, triple board certified, I love it. Husband and dad to 3 wonderful children. And I always say, like, I'm like the best, what's the word? Auntie, right? Alternative auntie in the world, because I was there when all these 3 children were born. So, and I what I mean there, I followed you people, London, Brooklyn, and now Pennsylvania. So wonderful kids. Now, my question to you is, does that expert knowledge kind of interfere, right, or factor into relationship patterns with Kemi? Because you know how they say that sometimes you are kind of, what's the word? Shrinking them, right? In that sense.
Not shrinking, but
yeah,
you're playing mind games with
does it like come in, you think, with you and the children, right? With you, Kemi, and the children. So in terms of parenting.
I think it's an excellent question. The truth is, I think any profession shapes how you see the world, right? If you're a military person, you see the world a certain way. If you're, an engineer, you tend to notice things, that other people don't. I have friends that are engineers and they notice bridges and how things are put together. So I think training does, and the professional background does shape your worldview and the way you interact with the world. So that, I think, just to start with that, in real time, it's I think it's a bit of a uh, it's a bit of a dichotomy because you don't want to be a shrink to your family, right? You don't want to be a psychiatrist to your family because then people notice and it makes them mad. Like, are you seriously doing that right now? You don't want to do that. On the other hand, um, it's not really something you can turn off, in that sense. For me, I would say the ways it has been helpful to have the background that I have is, first of all, part of the training is to make you self-aware.
Yes.
To actually heighten your self-awareness, what we call emotional intelligence. I'm feeling this way right now. It's probably not the right time to have that conversation. I need to really choose my words very carefully right now, maybe say nothing. So that self-awareness, I think, has been a real benefit. And also just the ability to stay silent, because sometimes strategic silence is the best thing you can do. The other way that I think, and the flip side is to be aware of what's going on, the other person's emotional state as well. So I think in any relationship, those are essential skills. I would say that's been a benefit of being a psychiatrist. The other the other way that I think this has been helpful has been in at different points we've had to work through emotional challenges with some of our kids. Not naming names, but it's been really helpful to know this is what's going on. This is exactly what's going on, and this is what we should do about it. And not be hindered by the stigma, which is what that I would say that's probably the primary barrier to help seeking, and say this is what this person needs right now, and we're going to get it done, and knowing exactly how to get it done. So those have been, I would say, some of the benefits of being having my professional background in at least as far as the family is concerned.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to ask, crave your indulgence, what might call a sensitive question, but I think that it will help our listeners, right? I know that both of you parent a child with ASD. For those listening, ASD is autism spectrum disorder. So my question is, what impact did this have on your relation? And I speak from a personal point of view because I've known relationships that have just like literally shattered because of this diagnosis. Where one person walked away because they just couldn't handle it. And so my question is, how have you managed it? And what words of advice would you give to couples, walking this very hard road, right? We don't have that, but we have, like you were the first person I came to with this neurodevelopmental thing that we were trying to work on, and I knew that I would get, you know what I mean, an advice that is not tinted, right, by anything from you. So my question is, how has that impacted your relationship, and how would you talk to people walking this road?
For us, I think um, what actually really helped us mostly is our faith. And then keep talking. Because because so at the beginning, the way Sumulu saw it was different from the way I saw it. I was ready to like, nope, I'm not taking this. And Sumulu was like, let us take this, let us, attack this thing medically and all that. So if you guys, I mean, it's not easy on any relationship. Um, what has helped us is to keep talking about it and take breaks from everything. Like sometimes we will just go away for a day or two. I'm like,
Splurge.
and like we're not going to think about this. So you know, I mean, I've listened to I've been to a few webinars about for parents with children with special needs, and they keep emphasizing your me time, unplug. You can't. I mean, yeah, it's very important. Like you just know that this child, if you have that at the back of your mind, that this child will be fine. That this is a journey. We're going to take this journey together, and it's one step at a time. This child is learning differently or learning slower than the rest of his siblings. So unplug every now and again. If it's just Netflix and chill with your spouse, that's fine. Yeah. If it's just go away and go and do grocery shopping together and leave the kids at home, that's therapeutic too.
We've done that.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't realize how therapeutic it was just walking through the aisle and looking at food.
Maybe bought one or two items that
Yeah,
day.
maybe, yeah, but not
Yeah.
because, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's we've learned over the years that talking, just keep talking about it, even if we don't agree about whatever they said at the IEP meeting or whatever the therapists are saying or whatever we found on the internet that it might work. That kind of thing. Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah, just keep talking about it with each other. You know, yeah, it's a journey.
So I'm going to say something that may sound a little odd or counterintuitive, but uh, at this point, and this has been years now. We've worked through a lot of very difficult, painful emotions and challenging seasons. I'll come back to that in a minute. But at this point, I would say I actually see our son's diagnosis as a gift to our family. Yeah, because what it has done is it's forced us to, first of all, it forces you to reassess your expectations, right? We all, especially those of us from our background, we all kind of have these high expectations of our kids. They have to go to Ivy League schools, they have to be top of their
And
professions, all of that
A
stuff.
students.
A students. And there's nothing wrong with that, having high aspirations, because evidence shows kids tend to actually rise to that
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
But um, having been forced to reckon with not with a child who we know he'll do well, but potentially at least may not may not go to the Ivy League, and being okay with it, what that does is it frees you to parent differently. It frees you to parent. It's freed me to tune into my child and be appreciative of small things. So
Mm.
just the person he is,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he has a kind heart, the fact that he
He's
loves being
musical.
around people, he's musical. These are things that in the grander scheme, like, okay, okay,
Yeah, that's
fine,
normal.
but
Yeah,
let's
that's
move
normal.
on. Let's move on to your grades. No. I would also say that for Kemi and I, what it's done is it's helped me to become more appreciative of who she is. So Kemi has incredible organization, or what I think of as operational skills. Kemi
Mm.
is phenomenal at that, far better than I am at organizing things. Well, um, we ended up tag teaming a lot on this. So, like she said, because of my background, I could interface with the professionals professionally and ask questions and, think to ask questions that maybe we might not have known to ask other if that background were not there,
Mhm.
and connect with my network and all of that other stuff, which has been helpful. But Kemi keeps the ship running
Mm.
every day. This is what we need to do. So I'm, torn in 100 directions. Kemi is like, we need to get him to this appointment. This is what needs to be said. This is what needs to be checked off. So what it's done is deepen my appreciation of who she is and her strengths, and actually it's helped us to work together. I will say that in the beginning it was difficult, and I'll say this to parents who are working through this. You see, those emotions are real. We tend to
Minimize.
disrespect mental health. We tend to think of emotions as small things. Nothing could be further from the truth. So the
Mhm.
first thing I felt was shock. In fact, I was numb for about 3 months.
Mm.
What does this mean? What are we going to do? The first day we learned about this diagnosis, I went to the basement and sat there for the rest of the evening just trying to figure out, what does this mean? That, then numbness, then, what do we do? Then, activity and trying to figure things out. But on this end of it, I'm grateful, for the journey. And I'll just echo what Kemi said. It's a journey. I think our relationship was pretty solid all the way, even before this. I would say it's actually drawn us close. And I'll end by saying what Kemi, echoing what she said. You absolutely you need to be intentional about protecting your relationship. You need to be intentional about investing in your relationship. So when you take time away from work, or you spend money on, what, two of us, we live in Philadelphia, we're going to go off to, this place for, reasonable distance from home
Mm-hmm.
for a weekend, to unplug and recharge and reconnect and remember why we fell in love with each other and why,
Mhm.
what we're about. That is not selfish. That is essential. That is what allows you to continue the journey and do it well.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
So stop there.
Okay. How about people who are afraid, right? There's a certain fear that a person coming into, because if you're away, somebody's watching your child, right? That's kind of the flip side of it, or they're with somebody. Some mothers, and I've experienced this personally, and I think that thing might just be a bit of genetic wiring. I've learned to see that some people are able to say, hey, you know the children will be okay, but some people are not. They're kind of just embedded right in their children. What about people who have a fear of leaving that child? And it's a well-founded fear, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, other people will not understand my child, right? And then that brings maybe some degree of shame. So people who are kind of, locked into that thing and saying, I cannot leave this child alone for one day to go be somewhere, right? Someone may say, this is a bit of an elitist thing, right? That I can take off and go somewhere and this child is still left there. So how would you ask someone to manage that?
No. So I'll answer that from two perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Professionally, there is such a thing as caregiver fatigue. It's a
Yeah,
real thing.
I
It's
know that.
recognized in
Yeah.
caring for the elderly, people with dementia. It's recognized in care for young people, young
Yes.
children who have special developmental needs. It's recognized. And the literature is very clear. It actually leads to harm to the individual, and
To the
it
caregiver.
increases the chances of harm to the
To
person
the
being cared
Yeah.
for.
Mm-hmm.
So caregiver fatigue is a real thing. Um, uh, what's the answer? Knowledge is is the answer, right?
Yeah.
And let me add one more thought. all of us will die one day.
Yeah.
And so will we leave that child? Yes.
Yes.
At some point, it's inevitable. We will leave that individual. And maybe the better strategy is to think about how do I recruit assistance, the
Mm.
right kind of assistance
Mhm.
for both my child and myself? How do I create a network of support that I can call on when I do need to get away? Because at some point, I'll need to get away from my own health for a little bit. I don't have to go an hour away. I
Mhm.
can go
To
check
the
into a
mall.
hotel overnight or for the weekend or whatever, or I can go stay with a friend or whatever. And how do I build that network? And that then forces us, I think, to
Mhm.
think about this in a different way. Who can I trust? Who
Mhm.
can I build trust with? How can I build expertise? Are there professional sources or resources that I can access through insurance or city funds or city resources or whatever? And those resources exist.
Mm.
They exist, and I would say it's doing that child and doing oneself. It really, at the end of the day, it's really doing oneself a disservice to not take advantage of it.
I love it. Thank you so much. See, this is why I wanted you to come on here by fire, by force
Force.
today. I love it.
Do
Like, I
I
just feel like there's so many people I can just send this one
clip to?
clip to.
I
Yeah.
do have something that I want to squeeze, get your intake now. What about, I've seen where the other kids, having a kid with special needs, they need more. How do you start to notice signs where the other kids are either feeling jealous, they want the same type, or you can't divide your time equally among them?
Mhm.
How do you address and cater to those? Because I've seen where kids just acting up, and you find out, oh, they've got a sibling, and as soon as they get out of the house, they don't have
Mm.
anything to do with it.
Mm.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, we struggled with that at the beginning because even when we moved here from the Midwest, um,
So we should tell them where we moved.
yeah, so we moved actually primarily because of Nissini.
Hmm.
So his older siblings were like, just because of him, like,
Oh.
It was very inconvenient for our daughter.
yeah,
It
so
was the
Yeah.
because
worst possible time
they
for her.
felt, oh, so we are not important.
Hmm.
So we had to have the conversations over and over and over again, an assurance. So, and then of course we did a little bit of bribing too.
And you can and I think actions speak louder than words. So this is
Mm.
Mhm.
where it's going to actually, this is again where the getting help comes in. Because if I'm so locked into this one child that I
No,
don't have
that's not
time for
healthy.
anybody else or any
It's
Hmm.
time
not
for
healthy.
anything else, uh, I don't know. And oftentimes that's driven by guilt, right? Guilt and
Mhm.
fear, powerful emotions that ultimately are not helpful. But if I'm so locked into this one child, then I'm not going to have space for the other kids.
Mhm.
So creating that base of support means I can actually have a little bit of a breather to attend to the other kids. Now, actions speak louder than words. And to circle back to what we talked about earlier, that whole thing about love languages. So our older two kids, we have three. One is our daughter loves to be taken out, loves to be spent time with. Our son, I discovered a few years ago, he loves fishing and video games, not necessarily in that order. So I think once we start to understand, okay,
Each
this is
child.
what speaks to this child,
Mm-hmm.
they want one on one time. Well, then we have to have a conversation. So
Mhm.
there are times where, we've done things with each of our kids that was just for them.
Hmm.
Took time off for work. I'm not saying this to brag because other parents do this, but took a day off. Our daughter is very creative and loves art. Took a day off from work, went to the art museum, spent the whole day at the
Mm-hmm.
art museum, talked and talked and talked. Our middle one, he kind of
Lost
likes
flying. Went to
flying, and so what did we do?
the air show
Went to an
and
air show
car
in
show
a different city.
and car
So
show.
those things, I think,
When you
uh, uh,
understand each child's need,
yeah,
then kind of create time for
Mhm.
them, and then they will see it that okay, that our parents are making the effort,
Hmm.
and they will appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the cost is to the parent.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where the slogan.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So all of your questions, I feel, are going to lead us to the last and final phase where we're talking about the role of faith, religion, right? From the very beginning, you had said, Kemi, that, one thing that you're standing on that helped you was the role of your faith. So we know this, right? Raised two continents, two different cultures, right? So now we're straddling both in that sense. So to the question for you is, where would you place the role of religion and culture, right, in a thriving marital relationship?
Thank you.
No, you go first.
So, I mean, being very respectful of other people because people are at very different places
Yeah.
in their own lives and in their own,
Journey.
thinking and so on, their own journey. Um, I'll just speak from my experience and, whatever aspect of it is helpful, please take that. If it's not helpful, then set it aside. I think we began really with the understanding that our primary relationship is with God, not so much with each other.
Mm.
So coming into our marriage was, this is going to sound odd, but we didn't need to get married. It wasn't because we needed each other. It was more, it was an addition. There were, I like to think of it as I certainly had there was a lot of work that needed to be done on me before we got married. And so I like to think of it as when we came into our marriage, we came as two whole persons, not people who are needing the other person to complete them. It makes, and I would say it's made such a difference in our marriage because our primary relationship is with God. So I know
Practical.
that if I act in a way that's not right towards my wife, then the person I'm really going to answer to is God, and I will hear about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that fear of God, I think, the Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
been very helpful. I think also setting aside all the, there's a lot of controversy about the Bible and the scriptures really inerrant and all of that stuff. Frankly, even if we look at it just as a historical handbook, a collection of thoughts
Mhm.
and advice, even if we strip it of everything else, it's full of good advice. I mean, full of good advice.
Mhm.
How could you argue with love your wife as you love yourself? How could you argue with treat your wife with respect? Treat your wife with honoring her as, physically weaker, but an equal partner with you. How could you possibly argue with that kind
Mhm.
of advice? So I would say that's been helpful. And I would say the last thing I would say is as we've continued to grow as individuals, in our faith walk, in our relationship, we've continued to develop. So one of the things I've noticed with Kemi is everything she does with her whole heart, like with her whole heart.
Yeah,
In the
that's
last,
true.
during COVID, one of the things that impressed me was, I'm telling you, when there was fear and so on, she just plugged in every resource. I was like, are you, it was listening to prayers all day, listening to faith videos, teachings all day. And here's what I noticed. She was not afraid. So she would go to the grocery store and pick stuff about like this, or go to her. This thing is not safe. And she's like, I'll be fine. I prayed it through, and she meant it, right? So I guess it worked. Right?
Can you speak for yourself?
So yeah, I mean, I've learned over the years. Some of the decisions that I made in the past were born out of fear.
Mm.
Understand? So I had to. I had to walk through that every time. Work on myself every time. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Don't make this decision based on what you're afraid of or what could have or couldn't happen.
Mm.
So that has helped me. And so even in marriage and parenting, um, like Smolu said, that the diagnosis was a gift because it helped me deal with anxiety and worry.
Mm. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
like so one of my friends, he showed me have you seen The Good Doctor on Netflix? This series about it's about I'm not sure, I don't think it's at Netflix anymore. It's about this boy that had ASD and became a doctor,
No.
Okay.
Okay.
and people they didn't accept him and all that. The first time I saw it, I cried
Mm.
because I was like, will Nisimi, my son, ever do this? You understand? So I had to bring out all that fear.
Mm.
I had to say it with my mouth that this is what I'm afraid of. This,
Mm.
this is my anxiety. This is my concern. There are some things that you might not be able to say. So even when I was back in pharmacy school, the way I was studying was driven by fear.
Mm.
So I had to deal with that. So that has been um my how would I put it now? My
Your growth journey.
yes, my growth journey.
Mm.
With all that. So coming to this side of the content of the world, and everything is
Working.
there. Everything is
Working.
you don't have to do anything. So that all that experience constrains me.
Mm.
The love of God constrains you,
And
to
Kemi,
not just follow what is going on, or just so
Mm.
yeah, that has been my journey so far.
and I've seen her change. Kemi is so much more confident now. So much more confident. She's assertive.
I don't think
Calm.
this is
I
about
know.
me.
Calm.
Well, kudos to you and to the work that's been done in you. And I've had a front row seat, and that's good.
Mm.
That's good.
All right.
Oh.
We have time for your questions for us on the Grey Couch.
Yes.
Okay, so what
Good.
question do you have?
I mean, so what kind of feedback have you guys been having from the Greek couch? Have people been coming with testimonials? Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's testimonials, but the thing that we hear the most is how do you people come up with these things in terms of they're so relatable? And my answer to that is, again, back to the Bible, like there's no temptation common to man that we've not all gone through. Like this journey, you're alone, but you're also the experience is common. I think is it's different but common. That's kind of like a paradox, but it's like there's nothing you will not talk about, right? Maybe you and me, Kemi, that you say, oh wow, okay, I know what that's like. I understand, right? I think that what I understand is really what we've gotten from this, and then from the book that we wrote. And that was really what drove us to write the book. I think we've talked about it so many times to say, you know, people just are not sometimes willing to tell their stories. And that's because they feel like it's only happening to me, right? It's just
Mhm.
me. On the other flip side is shame, right, for what you've gone through. And like you said, speaking it out, I think there's just power to that because it no longer has any hold
Hold on
over
you.
you. So just even listening to you, Kemi, I feel like I don't know, I feel so, I don't want to say validated, but I was like, okay, now somebody is speaking to my own experience, right? Because I think because we've been together all these years and you just take things for granted, but just hearing you speak, I know that has been my own thing too, to walk through that fear. But then people see me doing all these things and they say, oh, you're very brave. And I'm like,
We're all
no.
together.
It's me actively walking on the journey of not being afraid, right? Because I know that when I put my voice out there, other people can hear and know it's not just me, right? That thing, because that was also my thing, thinking it's just me, like I'm the only one who has this, like, interfering thoughts, those kinds of things. But then you find out that no, it's more common than you think. And I think that base of commonality now allows us to grow, right? Allows us to rise higher. So.
Well, I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing.
It's wonderful.
we're always always are challenged when we get around you both. Stanley, I looked at your fitness journey, just the person you are, your reading. Every time I get it, I'm just taking notes. And Otito is,
Oh yeah.
superstar.
In fact.
Obviously, very, very impressed with everything that you've done.
Thank you. It's been an honor being friends with you both. I'm telling you, see, we don't want our audience to enter our matter, because I know when Dr Sunmolu used to come to the room in B9, but let me just leave that matter.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Please leave that
Thank
matter.
you so much
for coming, and thanks for your vulnerability and authenticity. I think that's the response that I hear a whole lot. That as in, we went, friends, we can see that this thing is not fake. You guys are not putting up a show. That there's a genuine heart to share with people, and so you don't have to keep suffering. So thanks for that. Really appreciate it.
So much.
Thanks for doing the book.
Thank
you. And happy Father's Day in advance to you and you.
Thank you.
I know the fathers are wonderful. So let's talk to the women listening to us. Appreciate them more. Appreciate them.
So from us on the Grey Couch and the Shoyinkas, happy Father's Day, and thank you all for tuning in.
Bye.
All right.